Hey folks, Phil Gallagher here. We had a rough match yesterday. Let's see if we can do better today. I believe my opponent is a Maverick player. I'm going to keep this hand. It's not necessarily like what you want against Maverick, but Palace Jailer is really good at taking over these mid-range mirrors. Actually super happy to see that as a draw. I'm going to get something a little closer to a curve. Alright, so the goal is to lock up the ground via like Mother of Runes and Thalia and such, and then take over the game with Palace Jailer. We're now most afraid of something like a Scrib Ranger that will break board parity. Or that breaks board parity too. We're probably very dead if we don't draw a removal spell for Mom. Yikes. Well, I'm going to try to fight, but everything is a disaster. It's worse if my opponent naturally had Jitte in their hand. Because if they naturally have Jitte, then they're going to take out both of these Moms, and I'm going to be left with an empty board, and my Palace Jailer isn't going to be able to fight back against this much stuff. Yeah, that ain't bad. That ain't bad at all. So I can't wasteland my opponent and actually keep them off of Jitte equip. Or sort of Fire and Ice equip and get in. So I am not going to wasteland my opponent here. Just going to go ahead and let them have that. I lose both Moms here. I play Palace Jailer on an empty board, exile one of their things. They attack in with something else equipped with Jitte. Like I can like pretend that I can get back in that game, but I'm absolutely not getting back in that game. Okay, we do have an absolute crap ton of mid-rangey cards that I can bring in. Like we also can consider things like Rest in Peace and Active Authority. Active Authority is maybe a little bit dicey because my opponent also has things like Quasali Pride Mage that can just like blow it up. I guess it doesn't matter. I guess I get my value either way. Let's see how many things I have that I want to take out. So I have 2 prelates I want to take out. I have 4 Thalias that I want to take out. That would be an even trade. So like I can consider these as well. The rest of the stuff that I have in my deck looks pretty good. You are going to be slightly inclined to keep mana-heavy hands. This hand's pretty good. We can use our first piece of removal spell on something like a Dryad Arbor or Noble Hierarch, Mother of Runes that my opponent plays out on turn 1, and then we can save our removal spell for a creature that matters a little bit more later. I'm going to start threatening Jitte counters as soon as next turn. So there's 2 lines that I could have taken on this turn. Well, there's 3, but Jesus. That's devastating. That would have been devastating if I would have played the Stoneforge as well. My opponent just would have waited a turn instead. Anyway, to finish talking, the reason why I didn't take a play... why I didn't play the Stoneforge Mystic was so that I could use my Aether Vial mana the next turn, effectively, and then curve out off Vial Stoneforge into the Flicker Wisp. So my opponent had no early acceleration, no threat to speak of. So not 100% sure what all's going on over there, but they have an exceptionally reactive hand. Either that or they have a bunch of situational cards that just aren't worth playing out yet. I'm going to take a Palace Jailer here. My opponent has 2 cards left. One of the scariest cards I could possibly have is like Sword of Fire and Ice, and they go like land, Sword of Fire and Ice, equip. And I already have that covered via Swords to Plowshares. So I'm not going to just like junk the bird here. I'll do it end of turn, potentially, if my opponent doesn't have anything. No, I guess I won't. I guess I'll just exile it via Palace Jailer. Yep. I was already aware of that. Well, my opponent here has had every possible thing to punish my line of playing Palace Jailer, which is a little frustrating. So I'm going to be Source of Plowsharing the Scrib Ranger on my opponent's turn, which means I have 4 mana to work with. So I think things are okay now, but still not great. Just a straight up tutor, huh? That occurs. We're going to exile the Plague Engineer, even though there's a possibility that it may come back because I did this. But I think I need to leave up my instant speed interaction of Swords to Plowshares. So the next question is, do I just wasteland this Horizon Canopy right now, or do I need the mana more? I think they need mana more than I do at this point. I'm going to force them to attack with that and, like, effectively deny them 1 more mana. Rather than, like, kill it in response and then just get got by, like, them tapping the Bird in Savannah and re-equipping the Noble Hierarch. Not loving these draws. Oh, good lord. So if I double block, I take a body off the table, and presumably one Jitte counter off the table. I can use Wasteland to kill Dryad Arbor. I think I need to get this body off the table, but the cost is pretty high here. So 3, 4, 5, 6 mana available to me. I'm going to Karn, create an idiot. How many Swords of Plowshares have I used? I've used 2 Swords of Plowshares, only 2 Swords of Plowshares remain. So accordingly, I'm not going to leave up my single white mana for a Swords of Plowshares, despite the fact that it would be an incredibly good draw. And instead, I'm just going to get that Aether Vial out there. That's actually very good. What's being attacked? I am. I don't think I'm willing to give my opponent the crown. They get their Plague Engineer back. I think this is worth chumping. I'm gonna get to make a pretty impressively sized idiot here. This game has gotten strange. So I can make a 7/7, which would just lose out to the knight in combat. Or I can just shut off their Jitte. for a turn. Alright, so let's do this. Let's shut off a Jitte for a turn. Let's play out a Sword of Fire and Ice. Certainly don't mind that. So I really can't let them become the Monarch until my Revoker is dead. That's an annoyance. Now they get to become the Monarch no matter what. So my chump block is obligated, unfortunately. Because otherwise they just get a Sword of Fire and Ice trigger and kill the Revoker. And now they also get Plague Engineer. It's not great. Caracas and Stoneforge. We get a Caracas. So I can Flicker Wisp my Batter Skull to create a body. And hold up Batter Skull Bounce for whatever creature has Jitte on it. Ugh. I think I played this turn poorly. Let's see if it comes back to bite me. So I should have tapped Rishadenport Caracas Plains to make the play that I did, so that my opponent can't Knight of the Reliquary Wasteland me off of bouncing my Batter Skull. Ah, crap, I think I saw it. No, they didn't see it. Okay. Really hope my opponent doesn't have Swords of Plowshares. I'm ultimate, uber, mega screwed if they do. I messed up this turn. I have a Stoneforge in exile with a silver counter on it. could have left my Violet to gotten Jite. I'm going to take a random card instead. Ah, the third Caracas. Wonderful. Alright, I'm going to get a little aggressive here. Yeah. Don't love this Shaper Sanctuary. Has been a green draw 2 for 1 mana so far, and will potentially do more. Ticking up the Vial on my turn was super costly. I'm not used to playing with Karns. I hadn't mentally considered that. I was just thinking of how good it would be if I drew a Flicker Wisp. See how my opponent decides to play out this turn. But, like, I'm probably losing my Flicker Wisp to the 2 triggers, and potentially also losing Karn tonight. I don't know how I feel about that, because if I have the Wisp, this is such a blowout. Or the Swords to Plowshares. I don't, because I have a handful of lands and a Batterskull, but... I'll probably be a solid Pride Mage that can sit on the table and keep me from ever connecting with this. So I can Batter Skull, Stoneforge, and Ether Vial. I can Batter Skull and just hold up a bounce, but that doesn't do enough. I have to play out cards here. That was this game. Yeah, I'm not thrilled about my position. I think this one has spiraled out of control. I'm going to keep playing to the board because, like, every artifact I play to the board that sticks around means that the construct can get bigger and bigger and bigger. But it's not just worth making, you know, something along the lines of a 4/4 construct this turn if it's just going to eat it to the Batter Skull. Or, sorry, to the Quasali Pride Mage next turn. So I really need something like Palace Jailer into another removal spell or Flicker Wisp at this point. Like, I need to deal with multiple bodies that are on the table. Alright, so now my Karn is going down, and I can't save it. If I don't block here, then the Sword of Fire and Ice trigger will also just kill it. Does this do anything? I can cast a Walking Ballista for a large number. For X equals 3, then my opponent can just, like, kill it with 3 Jizai counters, swing in for lethal with 2 knights. That was brutal. I had some decisions I could have made differently that game. I objectively made a mistake when I ticked up my Vial to 3 instead of leaving it at 2, so I could minus Karn, get Stoneforge into play. That was an objective mistake. I also could have played another Recruiter instead of the Palace Jailer early, but it was only Scrib Ranger that punished me, so I felt fine in doing so. I also, like, very easily had the ability to take the Monarch back, but I could have waited until I was slightly better set up. Because my opponent got more use out of the Monarch that game than I did. So potentially could have played that one a little bit tighter. But my opponent had some things in their deck that I'm not used to seeing that caught me a little off guard. The Eldamari's Call and the Shaper's Sanctuary in particular. All right, I'll be back tomorrow. We'll see if we can start redeeming this league.